Hello everybody and welcome into this week's episode of Attraction Reaction Weekly Review, and I apologize for no episode last week. I just did not have the time to put it together. And before we get into anything else, I just wanted to say on a normal schedule I probably won't have time to get them all out on Mondays, so whenever I do make Attraction Reaction Weekly Reviews, it will be either between Monday and Thursday of that week, because I just don't have the time to have them all come out on Monday, unfortunately. But with that, we have a lot of stuff to discuss for this week. We had Jurassicoaster, we had a new ride at Disneyland Wales, as well as a new show at Disneyland Wales, and a couple of other things in between at Disneyland Wales that I'm super excited to get into. So with all that said, let's jump right into it. And first off, as expected, is the Jurassicoaster from Universal Studios Roblox. So the Jurassicoaster had its Club U preview on January 5th, I believe. And if you want to see the POV of that from me, that is on my other channel, TPR Rides and Attractions, which I will link in the description down below. And it had its official public opening on January 12th. So I was super excited to go check this one out. And of course, it's another great attraction from Universal Studios Roblox. So with all that said, let's jump into the good. So first off, as expected, Jurassicoaster is a very unique coaster. It obviously will be based on the Jurassic Park movies and films and all of that from that franchise, but it is still a unique coaster in layout, unique in design, and unique in its story beats. So before I go any further, I will say this contains spoilers, so if you do not want to hear about the attraction and you haven't ridden it yet, this will be a spoiler-filled review. And now to jump into it, I really did love the story with this. Sort of involved the guest, and it really tied the guest into the story very well by having you sort of be going through the different paddocks, and then once you're going through them, the raptors accidentally get unleashed. So that was a really nice story beat. All the theming was really good in and around the attraction. I loved all the theming. I also loved having the different character meshes with the velociraptors. Those all looked really good, and I loved seeing all the paddocks and all the really just awesome Jurassic Park theming all around the new updated Discovery Center, which the layout really opens up the Discovery Center and makes it really, really nice and really, really good for the guests to sort of explore, I think. And now moving on, I really did enjoy the dome aspect to the attraction as well. I believe there's also a reference to Jurassic World. If you have seen the movie, in that movie, they crash into the pterodon or pterodactyl dome, and there's a helicopter crash and the helicopter explodes. And in this ride, there's also a scene where you ride right by a helicopter that seems to have crashed into the dome. I don't know if that's the reference they were going for, but that's what I saw with that. And if it is meant for that, I think that's really, really cool. So now with all of the good out of the way, let's move on to the bad. There's not too many bad things to talk about in this attraction. Just in a few parts, it seems to go by too fast on some of the raptors. In some parts where you're just trying to tease the raptor at the beginning of the ride, it works. But as you go along into the ride, it definitely goes by a little too fast on some of the raptors for us to really appreciate and take in how great these character meshes are. Slash animatronics for the velociraptors. Also, the queue line itself, I believe, could have had better theming. Then again, it is sort of like a queue line. It's not necessarily like a Jurassic Park River Adventure or a Fast and Furious Supercharge. It's more like your Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket or your Incredible Hulk coaster, where the theming isn't going to be high. So in that regards, I think the theming is really well and probably better than both of those attractions. But I definitely think for an attraction of its scale and of its story, it could have had a little better theming. I did like that launch feature, however, or not launch feature, but where you saw the coaster go by as you were walking through the queue. I did think that was cool. And the only other thing, it definitely is not as thrilling as Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, which I would say is a comparable coaster, but it is still a fun coaster. It's got a lot of fun stuff in it. It's got a lot of fun turns. It's got one part that I particularly liked where you're going through the attraction and you're zooming up, and then you go right up to the top of the coaster and you go right back down. It goes really, really fast in that part. I really loved that drop sequence, and overall it's got a lot of turns. I believe it has one corkscrew, but do not quote me on that. But overall, it's still a really fun coaster. And my overall thoughts on Jurassicoaster, it's just a fun ride. And now let's move on to overall scores. So for uniqueness, I definitely think it's an 8 out of 10. It's a coaster we haven't really seen much at the park, just not up to that 9 or 9.5 out of 10 because of the rock meshes. We have seen coasters that go through rock meshes and that sort of stuff. Creativity, 7.8 out of 10. I definitely think that this attraction added to the park, and it definitely added something to the Discovery Center. But as I was saying before with the rock meshes, we have seen another coaster like that at Universal Studios Roblox with the Cavern Explorer, which prominently does go through rock meshes. But it's still creative in its story, and it's still creative in its layout. So it's still definitely close to that 8 out of 10, just not exactly there. So 7.8 out of 10. Entertainment, 8 out of 10. The story kept me entertained. Seeing all the raptors kept me entertained, and I really loved the voiceovers. The voiceovers were really awesome. I really enjoyed those. Then quality, as expected from Universal Studios Roblox, is an 8.9 out of 10, which will round out the overall score for Jurassicoaster to an 8.2 out of 10. I would definitely go check this one out if you are a Roblox theme park fan or a Roblox coaster fan. And next up on our list is Merida's Brave Adventure from Disneyland Wales. I did want to knock this one out before I talked about the shows, since Merida's Brave Adventure did open up this weekend. So as I was saying, Merida's Brave Adventure opened up on February 14th, which I believe was Saturday. And I really did enjoy this coaster. So with that said, let's jump into the good. First off, I loved the story, and overall, I really enjoy the Brave movie. It's not the best Pixar movie, but I enjoy the Brave movie in the Scotland setting, and I really enjoyed the story, and I like how they incorporated the wisps from the movie. I thought that was really clever, and I would have been kind of disappointed if they didn't include it, but I thought that they worked it in really well into the ride. It's also a updated version of Dragon Soar, which was a classic Disneyland Wales attraction that just closed, I believe, a month or two ago. And it was nice to see sort of that return of Dragon Soar, but as a new attraction with it being a little more smooth in some parts and going by a little more fast in some parts, to basically update the coaster and revamp the coaster with a sort of modern touch and with a IP that everybody loves with Merida and Brave. I also really loved the voice actors for Merida, and I thought that was really on point. And the rock meshes were also pretty good from when you're going into the attraction, which I thought was really cool. And the outside facade with the castle was also kind of cool. I also loved the Scottish setting. That was also really, really cool. I also really enjoyed seeing the Scottish facade of the city that Merida lives in, which was nice. Also, the bear in Merida character meshes, which in the movie, the bear turns into her mom in some parts, so that was definitely cool to see them incorporate the story like that, and all the character meshes slash animatronics were really, really good. I also loved the references, especially the quilt at the end of the ride was really, really nice, which is from the movie, which Merida rips off mid-movie. And it's definitely a good length for a story coaster. I believe it comes in at about 1 minute and 50 seconds. So I definitely think a good length for a story coaster is about 2 minutes, 30 seconds. So it comes in at about a little under that mark for me, but still a really, really good length for a story coaster. And I also loved the overpass at the end of the attraction where you could watch the ride vehicle go by, which I thought was cool. The merch was also really, really nice as an added touch. I always love when they add on merch at Disneyland Wales for the attractions. Now moving on to the bad, not too much here, but it's nothing too thrilling as it is just that Dragon Soar attraction. So don't go into it thinking it's a thrilling coaster, but it's definitely in that light of a Tarzan the Adventure, which is one of my favorite coasters from last year, which is a story-based coaster that can still give you a fun time, but also give you a really, really nice story with some Disney characters that we all know and love. And it's not as detailed as some other coasters on Roblox, which is why it may be lower than you may see or expect, but it's just not as detailed as, for say, your Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket or your Jurassic coaster, but it's still a really, really good coaster. So now moving on to my overall scores. So to first start out with uniqueness, definitely an 8.5 out of 10. It's a definite original story. I think it's our first Brave ride that I have seen from a Roblox theme park. Creativity, 8.7 out of 10. Very creative, definitely adds to Disneyland Wales as a park, and it adds another great attraction to the park. Entertainment, 7.8 out of 10. Pretty entertained with this attraction. And quality, 7.8 out of 10. Still about the quality that I expect from Disneyland Wales, but again, you just have some other higher quality rides. So not a hit on Disneyland Wales. They still have great quality attractions. Just a couple parks have a little bit higher quality, but that brings it out to an overall score of 8.2 out of 10. I had a really, really fun time with this coaster. I would definitely go check it out if you're a fan of Brave, if you're a fan of Disney movies, and if you're a fan of Roblox coasters, definitely go and check this one out. And now moving on to our final attraction that we have to talk about today, and that is Disneyland Wales Minnie's Valentine's Wish Spectacular. This is one I meant to talk about last week, but unfortunately I just didn't have the time to make a video on it. And Mickey's Valentine's Wish Spectacular opened up with the Disneyland Wales update on February 6th. Unfortunately, I still haven't been able to see the stage show for Valentine's Day, but I do wish to check that out next week, and so I can talk about it in next week's episode. But now on to the Wish Spectacular. First off, the good. I loved the graphics. The story was pretty original. I really enjoyed seeing Minnie at the forefront of the story as well. I thought all the floats were pretty cool, especially when you have Minnie and she comes in on that float that seems to be inspired from, I believe, Little Mermaid. And I also think it's a good length for a seasonal show. And even a regular show, I think 8 minutes is a really good length for a seasonal show for sure. The audio is good and it's definitely original. I think the voice actor for Minnie is really, really nice. And then the first, as I was saying, the first mini float is amazing, I think, and it definitely moves pretty smoothly. It's not like, it doesn't lag, it's not too bumpy, it moves really smoothly through the water. And I definitely like seeing the different princess couples, especially I think there was, you get to see Flynn Rider with Rapunzel. And I definitely like seeing Mickey come into the story too, and the way he did with the fog. I thought that was really nice. And of course, I also thought there was this circular graphic that came in on the ground, I believe at either the beginning or the end, and it was sort of this white circular graphic. I thought that also looked really, really cool. Now moving on to the bad. In my opinion, it's a pretty similar concept to the first show, not necessarily in story, but in style. I think it's sort of this style where you have the main character at the forefront, then midpoint into the show, three side floats come in, and they have the characters on them, and then they sort of sit there and they talk, and then they all leave. And it's a similar concept, I think, and there's not as much story or action as the original show with Mickey's Splash Spectacular, I believe is that it's called. Not as much there either, but overall it's still a really fun show. So now moving on to my overall scores. For uniqueness, 7.5 out of 10. It definitely adds to Disneyland Wales as a nice and fun Valentine's Day themed show. But then again, it's not going to get up to that 8 or 9 just because it's that similar concept. Same thing with creativity, 7 out of 10. Even though the story is really good, it's not necessarily something that will add to the park as much as some of their other shows, because they have a lot of other great shows that are a little bit better than this one. But it's, again, just a nice Valentine's Day show. And then for entertainment, 7.3 out of 10. I wasn't overtly entertained with the show, but I definitely liked hearing the musical score, and seeing the characters, and seeing those really, really cool floats. And then quality, 7.8 out of 10, about the level of quality I expect from Disneyland Wales. Pretty high quality attraction. And that brings it out to an overall score of 7.4 out of 10. I would definitely go check this one out if you're a fan of classic Disney characters, or if you're a fan of just Roblox shows. If you're not a fan of Roblox shows, you could probably skip this one. It's nothing that is like as great as some of the other Disneyland Wales shows, but it's still one to check out if you just want a nice holiday show to maybe fill your weekend with. And now I'm just going to touch on the Dreamers Valentine's Day ending. There's not too much to touch on here. I love that Disneyland Wales always adds sort of these holiday endings to their main show. So basically, it's not something that has like the great graphics like throughout the Dreamers show, since it is just an added on Valentine's Day ending. It's got some cool lighting effects. It's got some cool fireworks effects. And I believe there's like one heart graphic that comes up. So I think it's a pretty cool added on experience. If you just want to check out the Dreamers show and you haven't seen it in a while, I would definitely recommend going to check out the Valentine's Day ending of the show. But if you're not too into the shows, then you could probably skip that. But I'm not going to do like an overall score or anything. I just wanted to touch on that real quick. So with that is the end to episode 5 of Attraction Reaction Weekly Review. I thank you all for tuning into this episode. Give me your thoughts on all these attractions in the comment section down below. And be sure to go check out our daily nominee category reveals for the RTPR Award Show, which is coming on March 7th, along with the convention on March 4th. So I would definitely go check those out if you want to see your favorite Roblox theme parks and attractions be nominated for the award show. So with all of that said, I hope you all have an amazing day.